Hey, greetings all everybody. First, let me apologize for the lateness of this post. Here we are, chapter 4 of Parker Palmer and his book, Let Your Life Speak. Pretty powerful chapter. I feel a lot of opportunity to contemplate and to just kind of meditate on some of the things that he shares. And boy, how do I appreciate his authenticity and vulnerability to share his story and about his dark time and what he wrestled with in depression and how he worked through it. Something I've learned about church planters is that there's two things that they really struggle with, and one is loneliness and the second is depression. And I think some of that is simply because of just all the ups and downs early on in ministry and feeling like people are supporting, aren't supporting, and just all the wrestling that goes on and just the emotional tax that it has on a person. Parker talks about that depression is the ultimate state of a disconnection. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. And sometimes we need to remind ourselves, what's my connections? How am I being connected? How am I staying connected? And not just to God, not just to the Holy Spirit, not just to Jesus, but also to my friends and to my family. Disconnection leads to a lot of despair. And I also appreciate that it's not so much when you're trying to help someone, like page 63. Let me just share a quote from that. He says, one of the hardest things we must do sometimes is to be present to another person's pain without trying to fix it, to simply stand respectfully at the edge of that person's mystery and misery. And boy, what a great quote that is because how often we do try to go into a situation and try to fix it. But really what he's wanting us to be aware is that it's not about that. It's more about being present. And, try and keep that in mind too when you respond to somebody that has answered the question and you're responding to their reply of that question. Don't try and fix anything. Keep it all about encouragement, support, and being a blessing to that person. But, in thinking about the way up is down, just be reminded too of what Jesus went through for his resurrection. Before he could ascend upon high, he had to descend below. And there's something about that in reaching the bottom and the growing awareness of our own weaknesses that can happen through all of that. I also think about our own becoming more aware of really what's a reality to us and our own spirituality. On page 64, let me read something there. It's one of your questions. Functional atheism, saying pious words about God's presence in our lives, but believing, on the contrary, that nothing good is going to happen unless we make it happen. So, think about your own life. How many times have you been in prayer about something you're wanting God to answer, give you an answer, you're looking for his direction in something and you're not hearing, so you step out on your own. Well, I'm just going to go ahead and go do this, or I'm going to go ahead and take care of it this way or that way or another way. And, all we're doing is kind of what this is. It's a functional atheism. We're saying we're trusting God and believing God, but really we rely on our own strength. And I think there's a tendency to do that more than we know. And so that's one of the challenges again in this is what is God's presence really like for me, and how do I allow, what kind of mask do I put on depending on the circumstance and the situation I'm in, and how many times am I believing God for something but really trying to figure out how I can make it happen myself. Those are all things to challenge ourselves with, and I want to encourage you to challenge yourself with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking a step back. I don't think there's anything wrong with putting a pause on things in our life. But when you've been put in a position to where you've been forced to go underground, as Parker Palmer put it, before you can come to that place of realizing that his way is not up but down, sometimes that's the inner seeking that he desires us to go into, and And that's the thing that he can challenge us with, is to be able to find a place of resolve to where we're willing to confess, and we're willing not being all that sometimes we want to think others want to think of us. And so, you know, confession is really a very powerful, powerful thing. It's whether it's we're confessing something very positive, or just the confession of our own weakness. And it's something that's very powerful. So just want to encourage you as you continue forward. You know, the last two sections of this week's, you know, for your journal, you know, identifying your wounds is very critical. And so as you think back and you think about those,